If you have any questions or feedback, please use the chat function on the right. And if you forget and want to directly email us at zero.waste@dc.gov. Again, the email address is zero.waste@dc.gov. And there will also be an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the webinar. Today's speakers. My name is Tynika Garrett. I currently serve as a Capital City Fellow for the Office of Waste Diversion with the District Department of Public Works. I'm joined with Helen Lee. She's a Program Analyst for the Office of Waste Diversion, the Department of Public Works, and Stefan Roja, who's also a Program Analyst with the Urban Sustainability Administration with the District Department of Energy and the Environment. The Office of Waste Diversion was created by the Sustainable Solid Waste Management Amendment Act of 2014. Our responsibilities are to chair the Interagency Waste Reduction Working Group, to implement waste diversion policies and programs, which includes the Mayor's List of Recyclables and Compostables, and our newly launched food waste drop-off program for district residents, to implement source separation education and outreach programs, supervise and develop systems to respond to inquiries about source separation, and to serve as a liaison between the district and neighboring jurisdictions for regional diversion campaigns. Recycling in the district. Every building in the District of Columbia is required to recycle. However, recycling and solid waste collection looks different depending on the type of property. Whether you're retail, residential, or office-based property management, these services look different for your customers, tenants, and or employees. Sorry about that. Waste collection services in the district. In the district, solid waste collection can be broken down into two general categories. There's the DPW collection services, in which we service single-family homes and apartment buildings with 3 or fewer living units, which is approximately 105,000 households. All materials transferred to long-haul trucks at DPW's Fort Tarleton and Benton Road transfer facilities. Then we also have commercial collection, which is you all. Apartment buildings with 4 or more units, mixed-use buildings, and commercial properties, including more than half of DC households. These materials can be taken to DPW transfer stations or private transfer stations, composting, waste-to-energy landfill, and material recovery facilities. Current DC recycling requirements. Currently in the district, property managers are responsible for supplying accessible recycling containers, communicating information annually, including how and what to recycle, to tenants, and posting signage showing what to place in recycling bins. Now I'll pass the presentation over to my colleague Helen, who will discuss the Mayor's List of Recycling and Compostables.
Thanks, Tynika. So the Mayor's List of Recyclables and Compostables was a requirement in that Sustainable Solid Waste Act that created our office, and this is the first time where a single list of what's considered recyclable is applicable for all DC residents and businesses. It's often the case where you go to your school or your home and work, and what's considered to be recycled is different. And so what this list works to do is to harmonize across the board on what's considered recyclable. So this is effective January 1, 2018. We wanted to take an ample amount of time to do a lot of stakeholder engagement and outreach so that we can educate about the new recycling requirements. And until then, these existing requirements will remain in effect. So this list was created and published in December of 2016, and we'll go into the details of what that list looks like. So the current recycling list is commercial property owners are required by law to separate paper, paperboard, corrugated cardboard, metal, glass, and plastic. And for plastic, it was narrow-necked plastic bottles. And we are now expanding that list, what's considered to be recyclable. And I know that a lot of retail and multifamily properties, a lot of property managers are already recycling beyond this list, which is awesome. But again, by law, this is what the current recycling list looks like. So starting January 1, 2018, what will be added to this list and what will be required to be captured are items including pizza boxes, and I know there's a lot of confusion around that. Pizza boxes that are clean and empty and have even little blots of oil are acceptable. What we don't like is if there's obvious cheese residue or tomato sauce on the boxes, then should put that in the trash bin. There are other food service packaging ware that are now considered to be recyclable. Paper and plastic plates, cups, coffee cups particularly, cup lids, to-go containers, so anything that's poly-coated or plastic lined like coffee cups can be recycled in the paper recycling bin. And other materials include plastic produce container, deli bakery containers, and trays. So this will be new for all commercial and DPW collective recycling for households. What's new to commercial, particularly in addition to what the materials I just mentioned, are rigid plastics. So plastics that are not just narrow-necked, but you see in the picture in the middle there's different types of rigid, bulky plastics like coffee containers or yogurt jars. Those will now be considered recyclable for commercial streams, along with the lids. There's other bulky plastics for rigid plastics, such as milk and soda crates, buckets with metal handles, or laundry baskets, as well as milk, juice, and soup cartons, books, aerosol cans, and aluminum foil and aluminum pie pans. So these are all materials that can now be recycled, and all materials collected should be clean and empty. And just to not confuse anyone, for those who are already participating in a compost program and are possibly collecting paper-based materials like those plates or containers or cups, that's awesome. But again, this is what can now go into the recycling stream. Any materials that are 2 inches in diameter greater, so utensils, straws, and plastic lids that are less than 2 inches in diameter would not be considered recyclable, but these materials on your screen will be. So what the list also changes is plastic bags, films, and wraps will no longer be accepted in the recycling stream. What's okay for our DPW single stream curbside recycling, paper bags are okay. So if you want to collect your recyclables in a paper bag, put that whole bag into a recycling bin, that's accepted. We prefer loose recycling, and also there are options, many options throughout the district where grocery stores and large retailers are accepting plastic bags for recycling at store drop-offs. Now, in terms of commercial recycling, what is not okay is bags of bags, but we are accepting commercial plastic liners, and that's accepted for commercial operations. So if you have a bin, a larger bin that's collecting recyclables, and you're moving that to a dumpster outside, for that commercial operation purposes, plastic liners are accepted. The reason we are making this change is the majority of the MRFs in the region, the recycling facilities in the region, are not accepting bags of recyclable. They often reject that as contamination. And the reason is that a lot of these bags and film and wrap, you can see on the bottom right there, they get caught in the recycling facilities, and the jam equipment creates operational hazards for employees, a safety problem for employees, and so they really want to encourage the bags to be not in the stream. So if you want to encourage your customers or your tenants for store drop-off, like that top right corner there of collecting bags and recycling it, that would be awesome. So how was this list developed? We had a survey done of 8 regional material recycling facilities where we asked 70 different product types to these MRFs and asked to indicate materials that are accepted but do not want, or rejected. And what was added to the list, which we just went over, were the items that were accepted by the majority of the recycling facilities in the region. And the materials that were removed, again, that was only the plastic bags, wraps, and film, were, again, not accepted or desired by the majorities of these facilities. Sorry about that. All right, so how can this new list impact retail and property managers? It may mean that you will require communication with tenants on recycling requirements, whether that is through email or new signage, and also it might require training your staff. And you might also need to check with your hauler to just ensure compliance on your contract that these recyclable items will be considered to be recyclable with your hauler. And to kind of ease everyone in the room, we did meet with the material recycling facilities as well as the haulers, the recycling haulers or collectors in the area, and so they are also aware of this change, and they were notified back in December 2016. All right, so timeline. Again, this list is effective and enforced starting January 1, 2018. Again, December, this should be 2016, that recycling list was issued and shared with the MRFs and the haulers, and we also notified some of the trade associations. And in spring, right now, we're notifying the impacted stakeholders, all property managers in the district, and we're doing a series of stakeholder engagements such as these webinars or individual meetings. And we are doing education and outreach and developing tools and resources for businesses and residents to successfully transition to this list in January. In the fall, we will be publishing tools and resources that we are developing now. And again, by January 1, 2018, all businesses, government, residents, commercial properties will be required to source separate these recyclables. So the tools and resources that we are considering to develop at this time include a commercial recycling guide for property managers. We've been doing a lot of research on other jurisdictions on what would be helpful for them. So for Austin, they have this really cool spreadsheet calculator where you can input the number of tenants you might have in your building, your apartment setting, and it punches out the volume of bins you might need for recycling. So we're considering a tool, something like that, as well as a fact sheet of what materials are considered to be recyclable, and other graphics and decals that could be easily downloaded on the website that you guys can print, including decals for dumpsters so that your janitorial or housekeeping staff might easily indicate what's considered recyclable or trash, as well as an online tool where you can develop your own sign, where you can click and drag images and put your own logo and maybe your phone number and a creative sign. And that's something called a sign maker that we're looking into in terms of tools and resources. So the resources that are available now, if you go to our website, and we will share these slides to everyone who have registered today, we'll include the Mayor's List fact sheet, which again covers kind of what we discussed today. And on the back, it's a handy dandy sign that you can print and share with your tenants. You can put it on your wall to indicate what materials are considered recycled. On our website, if anyone's interested in some of the technical aspects of this list of, if food residue is really okay for materials that might be contaminated. If you want that kind of technical aspect, we do have some resources on our website that can explain that. So this fact sheet has been developed, and I will also send this out to everyone after this webinar. It's on our website. It could be printed and photocopied as wish. Again, it's just a simple sheet showing what materials are considered recyclable starting next year. Another awesome resource that we are really proud of here at DPW is, especially for the multifamily property managers that are out there listening, we have a new composting program called the Food Waste Drop-Off Program that was launched this past April. And basically, anyone, any district resident can drop off their food waste for free. And there is a site. These programs are located at a farmer's market, one in each ward, so eight program sites, and residents can drop off their food waste and we will get that composted. All right, so at this time, we want to actually open our lines to gather some feedback and maybe answer some questions about this recycling list before we go further into detail about e-waste. But we would like to take questions via either the chat function or we will also unmute if you raise your hand. Are there any questions in the room? We'll take your questions if you use the raise your hand button or the chat function on the side of your screen. So it looks like we are not getting any questions or feedback at this time. But we would like to get your feedback on what tools and resources you might need, if it's more signage or sticker decals or graphics, or education and outreach materials. Okay, well, if you have questions that come up later, please email us directly at zero.waste, W-A-S-T-E, @dc.gov, and we can answer via email. But it looks like we are not getting any questions on the chat function, so we'll move on to e-waste recycling, and we can, again, spare additional time towards the end to gather more feedback. All right, I'll hand it over to Stefan.
Thank you, Helen. My name is Stefan Roja. As they mentioned, I work at the Department of Energy and Environment on our e-waste recycling program, which is called eCycle DC. It was also created by the Sustainable Solid Waste Management Amendment Act of 2014. And I'm here to talk about the disposal ban that comes into effect January 1st, 2018. And that ban states that no person in the district shall knowingly dispose of covered electronic equipment in the trash. Covered electronic equipment includes computers, computer peripherals, televisions, and television peripherals. We have a greater definition of what these items, the definition of these items on our website, but those are the four basic categories. So what does this mean for property management? We ask that you help inform tenants of these new requirements that covered electronic equipment cannot be placed in the trash. We'll have a flyer about this disposal ban that we'll send out after this webinar. And this flyer includes what is specifically banned from the trash, and then also options for recycling electronics properly. And this also means that there may be a responsibility on the property management if items are abandoned or left by tenants in common areas and then become the responsibility of the property management. The property management will need to work with electronics recycler to make sure those items are not placed in the trash and recycled properly. My contact information is below. You can email me at productstewardship@dc.gov or give me a call. My number is 202-741-0832. And we also have additional information available on our website.
All right, so here's the screen again with our contact information, and we will again reach out to everyone by email with resources that we have discussed today. I am actually quite surprised that there hasn't been any questions or feedback either on our chat function and our raise your hand function. So I'm just worried that maybe it's not working. Oh, it looks like we got a question. Read that.
So we have a question. The question is, will there be penalties for violating either new rule?
Do you want to talk about that
Yeah,
on the
so
UA side?
first, for the electronics disposal ban, yes, there will be penalties. We're currently working on our schedule of fines, which will be proposed through a rulemaking process. But there will be penalties. But our department's goal is always compliance assistance and working with you to make sure that we all work together to achieve the goals of the statute.
Thanks. So that was for electronics, but for the mayor's list, there are current recycling rules in place and have been for decades in regards to recycling in the district, which is, again, I'm going to go back to that slide of current recycling rules, where you need to supply accessible recycling containers so that your customers and tenants have the capacity to recycle, communicating information annually on how and what to recycle, and posting signs. In terms of compliance with this new list, we have developed regulations, and there is a fine schedule that will be associated. But again, like Stefan said, our department will be really focused on education and outreach. And again, we took really ample amount of time. This won't go into effect until next calendar year, January 1, 2018. So we really want to press on the education and outreach perspective versus pushing on enforcement. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, if there isn't, you can, again, reach us out at zero.waste@dc.gov. I'll put that information up on the screen again, and we will reach out to you with the resources. Thank you so much for joining, and if you would like to connect any of your colleagues or other stakeholders in the district you think might be this information would be valuable to them, we will be hosting future webinars, and that information and the schedule of the webinars are located on the DPW website that is on the screen. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day.